This time 20 years ago, we were filming Biker Build-Off against Mike Brown from Amen Choppers in Tennessee. How many miles before I can pull wheelies?
5.
Now this was supposed to be a 2-week build, so we were gonna build for a week. Then I had to go to Hawaii with Indian Larry and his crew to do a bike show on Oahu for the 4th of July weekend, and then we were coming back the following week to film. Now this was my 4th Biker Build-Off. We'd done 3 against Roger Bourget, Dave Perowitz, and Indian Larry. So I hadn't done a Biker Build-Off in about 10 months. I've had some problems with Discovery Channel. So we had taken a break and just got a lot of work done in the shop, and we're really ready to get back in and do another Biker Build-Off. I wasn't crazy about Build-Off against Mike Brown. Let me tell you about that history. All the other builders I'd done Biker Build-Off with, I had a lot of respect for. Indian Larry, Roger Bourget, Dave Perowitz, legends, right? And I had a lot of respect for those guys, so I was so happy to be doing a show with those guys. I had no respect for Mike Brown, and here's the reason. Mike Brown and I were both kind of in the frame and wheel business, and I helped Mike Brown at his request. He totally shit on me, and I wasn't happy about it.
Both Billy Lane with his money shot and Mike Brown with his hubless monster have designed and built hubless motorcycles, but each claims the other stole his idea.
Billy took my idea 8 years ago. That I told him that I had hubless wheel designs, and 4.5 years later he finally got one, put it on wrong.
When Mike Brown says that I copied his idea that he told me about 8 years ago, I didn't know Mike Brown 8 years prior to 2004. I only knew him about 2000, 2001, so that's a pretty big lie right there. But for Mike to claim that I stole the hubless wheel idea from him is just insane, and the main reason is I didn't steal it from anybody. I'd seen concept drawings about the hubless wheel. I wanted to be an automotive designer, so I was always into automotive design and concept drawings. And so I'd seen designs of hubless wheels going back to the 60s. And I found out after I made my wheel that in the 1990s, a guy named Franco Zabaro, a Swiss designer, engineer, had tried to develop the hubless wheel for a BMW. So for Mike Brown to say I stole it from him is an outright lie, because somebody had already done it decades before.
The thing about him saying that he invented the hubless wheel and all this other stuff is that that's all he's got to hang on to, you know? Like that's his whole claim to fame, is look what I did, and associating it with my name. If he invented it, why would he even say my name? Why even include me in it? Why say I stole it?
I just told myself I'm gonna build a very traditional David Mann style bike. You have to add a little flash because it's for TV, of course. You know, people want to see the bright paint and the chrome, and you know, they want to see a little flair to it. So I couldn't just do a black chopper, which is what I love. So for me, the fabrication part of the Biker Build-Off was always great.
I like to make the seat smaller, so I'm going to cut basically the seat out of this bike and do that first. And then all these bars are going to move back a few inches, and I can put the gas tank up in here.
The bike that I built was pretty basic. You only have 2 weeks to build this bike, so you can't go crazy. It's a big mistake to try and go crazy on a Biker Build-Off, because there's just not a lot of time, because you still have to allow time for paint and chrome. So I was building a very simple traditional bike.
To bend sheet metal, Billy goes high-tech. A pipe and some elbow grease.
Yep, there's my gas tank tunnel.
I'm gonna make an amazing gas tank for it, a really cool custom gas tank like no one's ever seen. Nice Sissybar. Those two things right there can really make a great bike if you've got good lines.
Well, on the home stretch here with this gas tank, making pretty much the last 2 major panels I need for it. The last 2 can either be the easiest or the hardest to get in.
As Billy works, his apprentice Sabrina Dean looks on.
I'll explain the concept of that to you later, some other time. But
now this scene with Nick is probably my favorite scene in the whole episode, because it just shows Nick and who Nick is. Me, Mondo, and Nick are working on the motorcycle.
Nick Fradella, Billy's right-hand man, and Mondo cut an unnecessary strut from the bottom of the frame. This is what chopping is all about.
Mondo, did you notice Nick's safety precautions? He's got safety glasses on the top of his head, so he'll never let the sparks burn the hair on the top of his head.
That's right.
You might go blind.
That's right. I may go blind, but I won't go bald.
Nick's got his safety goggles on top of his head. You know, he would always wear the goggles on top of his head. I'm like, why do you even put the goggles on, Nick? He never used them. It was the funniest damn thing, and it just always makes me laugh every time I watch the show. And that was Nick. You know, Nick would have his safety goggles on top of his head while he was grinding with an open grinder with no guard on it. And Nick would go and fill his gas tank up at the gas station with a lit cigarette hanging from his mouth, putting the gas pump in the fuel opening and looking down with the cigarette hanging right over top of the gas opening. That's just the kind of guy Nick was. You know.
Nick's a Sissybar master, so he's gonna get that thing done quick. We're just talking about Sissybars, and a lot of people don't use them anymore. You know, the new style is to build choppers with a Sissybar, and I always use them, and it's like a lost art. Sissybars are, you know, they're cool, and they're on there for a reason. We build our bikes to ride chicks on the back. That's the only reason to have one, so you can support some weight back there. 100 pounds is all you need. All our bikes, two things, a gas tank and a Sissybar.
Legendary old-school builder Mondo Porres has flown in from Las Vegas to help.
That's what's great about what we do, you know, there's always people helping each other out. Oh, my leg, holy.
I was waiting for you.
I had Mondo come in. At the time I had Mondo come in, they hadn't really decided what Biker Build-Off to do next. I had guys like Larry and Mondo and Aaron Green from Paramount come into my build-offs because I wanted Discovery Channel to do shows about these guys. Why they're choosing Mike Brown over somebody like Aaron Green or Mondo, it just doesn't even make any sense to me.
Day 6 in Melbourne. Luckily, Choppers Inc. has a sofa.
This is a good scene. You know, me sleeping on the couch happened all the time. We call it the blue couch. Ask me, I'll tell you why sometime, but I'd sleep on that red couch. And we called the blue couch, and I'd work, you know, for hours on end, take maybe an hour or 2 hour cat nap, and get back up and go back and do it again, because I lived, you know, 30 miles from the shop. So instead of me having to go home and, you know, spend an hour riding home and getting a shower and getting comfortable at home and not wanting to go back to work, I just crash on the couch for a while, get back up and go right back at it. And that was what I did every Biker Build-Off you've ever seen with me. When I wasn't working, I was on that couch taking a break for a few minutes.
Mike is going to cut the rims from 2 car wheels, then weld these pieces together to form a motorcycle wheel 22 inches in diameter and 4 inches wide. Then he's going to stretch that wheel from 22 inches to 23 inches. After
What I'm looking for is the diameters matching, and the width is wide enough to put the spokes in. So now it's 22 inches. It's about as involved as anything you ever put your hands on, to tell you the truth. This ought not be done.
molten halves against the die.
Now, as much as I personally dislike Mike Brown for the kind of person he is, I'm going to give a man credit where credit's due. That wheel that he had, he needed a 23-inch wheel for the rear wheel on his bike, and his vendor was unable to deliver it to him. So Mike took a 22-inch wheel, cut it, and stretched it. And that was impressive. To me, that was one of the most impressive things of that episode, was the fact that he got that wheel on there and got it round. Stretching a wheel like that is not an easy thing to do. I didn't... Nobody knew it yet but me, but I was really fed up with the Discovery people, so this was going to be my last Biker Build-Off. I hadn't told anybody, but my first Biker Build-Off, my bike was painted by Scott Takis, and I loved what he did, so I brought him in to do my last one, allegedly, and he did a beautiful David Mann style airbrush job on my bike.
Melbourne, Joe Richardson and Scott Takis are going to split the paint. Joe's going to do the frame and Scott the tank.
Billy was kind of thinking to do kind of a tilt of the hat to David Mann. So we're kind of looking at some of his artwork and trying to gather some of his style.
Now you're talking my game. That's why I like you, man.
As I mentioned, we filmed for a week, had to break for the week of 4th of July for me to go to Hawaii with Indy and Larry and his crew. Then we're supposed to come back and work. The day before we were leaving in Hawaii, I was riding with Indy and Larry and Paul Cox and Kana. We were coming down a mountain. I was on my 1948 Panhead Hell's Bell. I downshifted. When I downshifted, front connecting rod broke, wiped the engine cases out, oil all over the highway, almost sent the whole crew down. I had wiped out my bike. The next day, I had nothing to ride, so a friend of ours, Chris, loaned me his bagger. It was a road glider, street glider. I don't remember what it was. But I was riding and went to go through a hard turn. There's sand because we're right down near the beach. There was sand on the road. The bike kind of went to slide out. When it went to slide out, I tried to recover it. Kickstand caught a reflector in the crown of the road, and I went down on that big heavy thing and put my hands out to stop myself and plant, and shattered my distal radius pretty bad right here on my right hand.
In Billy's world, paint is complete and assembly is about to begin when disaster strikes. Billy's kickstand hooks a road reflector, and when it's all over, Mr. Lane has a right arm broken in 4 places.
I got some x-rays here. You can see right here on the right how bad the bone's shattered. It's offset about 1/4 of an inch.
Mike Brown had the ability to call it a victory. He was smart. He said, no, I'm going to play this one out.
All my bikes, you know, I do a one-off Sissybar and gas tank. I don't really do the same thing twice. You can always pick my style out. Kick ass.
Paul Cox has flown down from Brooklyn to do Billy's seat.
How are you, man?
How's it going, bro? Good to see you.
So I've got all my stuff, and I'll set up the spot and make Billy a seat. Ribbon around and just kind of, like, work with some of this negative.
Yeah,
It literally does kind of fit like a glove.
Yeah, it's the oil tank that I made out of sheet metal. Got cooling fins on it. I've done them on a few of my bikes.
My buddy Smitty assembled this Knucklehead engine. He built a bunch of engines for me over the year, including the engine in my bike Blue, which a lot of you already know. He built that shovelhead engine for that bike. He did the reproduction Swedish Knucklehead engine for me on this machine.
This engine is called a Knucklehead because the rocker boxes kind of look like a couple knuckles, the way they're shaped. Basically like a reproduction Knucklehead with all American and Swedish parts. Everything's brand new in it. But it's an exact copy of the early Harley-Davidson Knuckleheads they made from 1936 to 1947. It's a piece of art, if you ask me. I've always liked old bikes and just like the old style stuff, and that's part of what about being a real biker is about being stuck on the side of the road and knowing how not to be stuck on the side of the road. So it's got gas. Damn, it's got spark, Daddy-o. Because I got a hat on, my hair would be out like this. Now, I was checking the timing on this magneto. It didn't seem, it's making spark, but it wasn't sparking at the right time. I ain't promising nobody nothing about anything.
All systems are go in Billyland.
Great engine, 93 cubic inches. Thing ran great the whole trip, but when I first got it, the magneto was put in wrong. The timing was wrong. So when you have spark, compression, and fuel, it should run unless your timing's off. Timing was off, that's why it wouldn't start. So got in there, put the magneto in right, bam, we're down the road.
Chopper style, his 6 up, 4 forward, and 45-degree raked 1-off is pushed by a reproduction 30s Knucklehead engine.
So the producers wanted to do this thing, good versus evil, God versus Satan kind of thing. Mike Brown's a really loud Christian. I'm just a really quiet one. I wasn't really into playing up that whole side of things.
I pray for him.
They say they're going to save my soul.
Oh, no. Tell him I've been trying to do that for 34 years.
I didn't like it. I didn't think this show needed it. I think if you have two builders build something and make them ride it a long distance right away, you're gonna get all the drama you need, but that was some unnecessary drama they wanted to put in. I couldn't control back then what they filmed, what Mike Brown said, or how they tried to play it. So I just was focused on building a motorcycle and riding it, which is what I've done since I was a teenager, almost 40 years.
Mike's gonna build some of that high-tech crap that he always builds. He builds these wacky frames that go X and Y, and it's all for shock value, man. It's it's all that high-tech equipment he makes it with and stuff. I'd rather walk home than ride one of his bikes home. And I see the industry going a whole nother direction. They're going toward the Jetsons, and everybody else is going back, retro.
Over the past 20 years, a lot of people have commented to me about the meeting on the bridge. And let me tell you about the meeting on the bridge in Biloxi.
All I did was just the opposite of everything I normally do. Your normal stuff. Nice.
So the night before this happened, my girlfriend and I had just arrived in Biloxi, Mississippi. We're staying in one of the casinos, and we're sitting at the casino bar having a drink. So my girlfriend nudges me and says, "Hey, look, there's two big old roided dudes walking up on me. They were sent by Mike Brown, or they were friends of Mike Brown's, but regardless, I had hurt my arm, so by the time we got to Biloxi, I was just rehabilitating myself from my injury. So I just finished a 2-week MMA camp. I was ready to pick and roll. I turn around, and as I turn around, I see my friend Shovelhead walking behind them. And Shovelhead's huge. He's probably 6'4", 6'5", fresh off the prison yard, knows how to scrap. And I see him walking behind, so I'm like, fellas, how are you doing? And that was the end of that whole thing. But I didn't like how Mike sent these guys to try and intimidate me or roll me or do whatever they were going to do. So that's why I reacted the way I did on the bridge.
Mr. Lane and Mr. Brown ride side by side for the first leg of the trip, but that won't be for long. 35 miles out of Biloxi, though neither of their bikes have been properly broken in, Billy and Mike drop the hammer.
Now, the one thing I love about these build-offs is the riding. I said before, the fabrication in the shop was really amazing. I love seeing it from my side and the other builder side, but the riding was always so great. This is before drones. So they would rent a helicopter and shoot these aerial footage of us riding over I-10 and riding on all these causeways over the water, and they shut down the highway. We go back and forth and shoot several takes of these shots. But I mean, Jesse Finney was the cameraman, and he just would always capture amazing footage of us riding. And that's my favorite thing about Biker Build-Off, was from all the shows of that era, that you had to ride the bike that you just finished in a crunch time period, and you had to ride that bike a long distance. And that I-10, if you've ever ridden on I-10, at least back in the early 2000s, you know how bumpy that road is. Ba-bam, 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 ba-bam. And really rough highway. So, hard riding on a rigid, but always good riding.
At the first pit stop, a major casualty. Mike Brown's Get Her Done is now Get Her Fixed.
It's broken, and at that point, we'll have to take it back here to the back and get it welded up.
If he had been a cool guy and had treated me right and treated me with respect, I would have reciprocated that and hung out and helped him fix his bike. I could have called forfeit. You saw what I did. I quoted Indian Larry. I said, hey, let him fix it. I don't need that kind of thing to win, and I didn't even care about winning, to be honest with you. To me, when I'm on the show, I'm winning. When I'm riding, I'm winning. So I didn't even really care about any of that.
So, Billy, it's decision time here, man. By the rules of Biker Build-Off, you could declare a forfeit. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm gonna quote Indian Larry and say it just doesn't seem like the right thing to do, Just get it fixed and keep riding.
It's only 340 miles to Daytona. The weather's good, so why not throttle her down and go for it? Biketoberfest, 150,000 riders have come to the sunny South from all over America for the fall's biggest, rowdiest bike week. It's a mob scene as thousands line the way to see Billy and Mike thunder down Main Street to the Discovery booth inside the Hard Rock Tent City.
We got into Daytona. Daytona's home turf for me. Just really good to be back there. This is October 2004. We had just lost Indian Larry in September 2004. It's there 1 minute, and the next minute he's gone. And so this little tribute that Discovery Channel did, I thought was a really nice moment.
At 6 in the evening, the voting is over. Before the winner is announced, the Chopper King asks the audience to send their prayers to a departed biker build-off hero.
I'd like everybody to reach deep into their heart. I want you to think about Indian Larry.
Another one of my favorite moments from the show. You can see the crowd of people there. Indian Larry had built such a massive fans in such a short period of time. Even though he'd been doing it a long time, a lot of them didn't know him for his whole career. So that was a really beautiful moment.
Another biker build-off is over,